Chaik, my son, beat me up just because the soup had no salt, but he forgot something. The slap came so fast I didn't have time to raise my hands. My own son, Chaik, my firstborn, the boy I carried for 9 months and raised for 28 years, stood over me with his fists still clenched, his face twisted with a rage I'd never seen before. Blood trickled from my split lip onto the kitchen floor of my own house in Lekki, Lagos, the house I'd worked 3 jobs to help buy. You call this food, Mama? Hello, family, welcome back. Before we begin, I have a heartfelt request. Please subscribe. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from, because together, we are not just telling stories, we are keeping hope alive. Chaik spat, kicking the pot of jollof rice across the tiles. No salt? Are you trying to poison me? Get out of my house. His house. I blinked through the pain, trying to understand when my home became his. His wife, Ngozi, stood in the doorway with her arms crossed, a cold smile playing on her lips. She didn't say a word, but her eyes said everything. This is what I wanted. Chaik, please, I whispered, my voice shaking. I can fix it. I just forgot. I said get out. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging into my flesh like claws, and dragged me toward the front door. I stumbled, my wrapper coming loose, and fell hard on my knees on the concrete driveway. The security gate buzzed open, and before I could gather my senses, I was on the street in the evening darkness, watching my own gate slam shut in my face. What would you do if your own child turned on you like this? Hit like if you felt this kind of betrayal, and comment below where you're watching from. My name is Adana Okafor, and I'm 58 years old. 3 years ago, after my husband Emeka died from a sudden heart attack, I moved in with Chaik and his wife. It seemed like the right thing to do, a widow living with her son, helping with the grandchildren, cooking, cleaning. But somewhere along the way, I became a servant in my own son's house. Or rather, I became an obstacle that I sat on that curb outside my gate for 20 minutes, my whole body trembling. Neighbors peeked through their windows, but no one came out. This was Lagos. People minded their business. My phone was still inside. My bag, my ATM cards, everything. I had nothing but the clothes on my back and the wrapper I managed to tie properly again. The cut on my lip throbbed. But worse than the physical pain was the breaking of my heart. How did my sweet Chaik, who used to kiss my cheek every morning, who called me his queen, become this monster? Then I remembered something. 3 months ago, I'd overheard Ngozi on the phone in the guest bathroom. She was talking to someone about property documents, and my name came up. Once we get her out, she'd said, the house will be fully ours. My uncle knows a lawyer who can make the transfer happen fast. At the time, I thought I'd misheard. I convinced myself Ngozi loved me, that she was a good daughter-in-law despite her cold demeanor. I was a fool. The house, my house, was still in my name. Emeka had put it in my name before he died, along with a life insurance policy and some investments I'd never touched. I'd added Chaik's name to the deed 2 years ago when Ngozi suggested it would make things easier if something happened to me. But I was still the primary owner. They wanted me gone so they could take everything. I stood up slowly, wiping the blood from my mouth with the edge of my wrapper. A Okada rider slowed down near me. Auntie, you need help? He asked, concern in his young face. Take me to Suralere, I said, climbing onto the back of the motorcycle. I need to see my sister. As we wove through Lagos traffic, the city lights blurring past me, something hardened in my chest. I'd spent 3 years being meek, being grateful, being the good widow who didn't complain. I'd let my son and his wife walk all over me because I thought that's what mothers were supposed to do. Sacrifice everything, endure everything. But they'd made a mistake tonight. They'd pushed me too far to be. By the time we reached my sister Obioma's flat in Suralere, I'd made a decision. I wasn't just going to get my house back. I was going to make them pay for every insult, every slight, every moment they made me feel worthless in my own home. Obioma opened the door, took one look at my swollen face, and pulled me inside. Adana, what happened? I sat down on her couch and finally let myself cry. But even through my tears, I was planning. Because what Chaik and Ngozi didn't know was that I wasn't just a widow. I was a woman who'd survived poverty, who'd put myself through university while raising children, who'd built a business from nothing before Emeka died. They thought I was weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were, but first, I needed to find out exactly what they were planning and who else was involved. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think Adana should do next? Comment below. Obioma pressed a cold compress to my lip while I told her everything. Unlike me, my younger sister had never been one to bite her tongue. By the time I finished, her face was red with anger. "That ungrateful boy!" she shouted, pacing her small living room. "After everything you did for him, sending him to that expensive university, buying him his first car when his own father said he should manage public transport." "Obi, please, the neighbors will hear," I said quietly. She stopped and looked at me hard. "Since when do you care what people hear? The Adana I grew up with would have burned that house down by now." She was right. I'd become so timid over the years, so afraid of disturbing the peace. When did that happen? When did I start swallowing my own voice? I overheard something 3 months ago. I told her about Ngozi's phone conversation. They're planning something with the house, probably trying to transfer it completely into Chaik's name, and then, I don't know, sell it, kick me out permanently. Obioma sat down heavily. "You said Emeka put the house in your name?" "Yes, but I added Chaik as co-owner 2 years ago when Ngozi suggested it would help with inheritance tax issues. I didn't even check with a lawyer, I just trusted her." "Oh, Adana." Obioma shook her head. "That woman has been playing you from the beginning. You need to see a lawyer first thing tomorrow morning. My friend Amara's husband is a property lawyer. I'll call her now." While Obioma made the call, I looked at my reflection in the mirror hanging by her door. My eye was starting to swell. The cut on my lip looked worse than it felt. I looked like a woman who'd been beaten, because I had been, by my own son. Something cold settled over me. This wasn't just about the house anymore. This was about my dignity, my life, everything I'd worked for. Obioma hung up. "We're seeing Barrister Okonkwo tomorrow at 9. "But Adana, there's something else you should know." She hesitated. "I didn't want to tell you before, but I've seen Ngozi around town. With a man." My head snapped up. "What man?" "I don't know his name, but he drives a Range Rover, always dressed in expensive Agbada. I've seen them together at the Wheatbaker Hotel in Ikoyi 3 times now. Very close, if you understand. Domestic betrayal. It wasn't enough that they wanted my house. Ngozi was also cheating on my son? Or was Chaik in on it? Maybe this man was the uncle she'd mentioned on the phone, the one with the lawyer connection. "Can you find out who he is?" I asked. Obioma smiled grimly. "I already took photos on my phone. I thought you might need them someday." We stayed up late that night, looking through the photos on Obioma's phone. The man was older, maybe in his 50s, with an expensive watch and designer shoes. In one photo, his hand was on Ngozi's thigh. In another, they were leaving a hotel room together. "If Chaik doesn't know about this," I said slowly, "this could be useful." "And if he does know?" Obioma asked. Then my son was even more of a snake than I thought. But either way, I had ammunition now. Evidence of infidelity in marriage that could destroy Ngozi's position, and potentially Chaik's too if he was complicit. I slept fitfully that night on Obioma's couch, my dreams full of Chaik's angry face and Ngozi's cold smile. But when I woke up at dawn, I felt different. Stronger, clear-headed. At 9 sharp, we sat in Barrister Okonkwo's office in Victoria Island. He was a tall man with graying temples and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally making notes. "Mrs. Okafor," he finally said, "you're still the primary owner of the property. Your son is listed as co-owner, but any transfer of the property would require your signature. Have you signed anything recently?" I thought hard. "No, nothing." "Are you sure? No documents that Ngozi or Chaik asked you to sign? Maybe for something that seemed unrelated, bank papers, insurance forms?" My stomach dropped. 2 weeks ago, Ngozi had asked me to sign some papers. She said it was for Chaik's new business registration, that they needed my signature as a witness. I'd signed without reading them properly, trusting her. "Oh God," I whispered. "I signed something. I didn't read it." She said it was for a business. Barrister Okonkwo's expression darkened. "We need to find out what those documents were immediately. If they were property transfer papers disguised as something else, you may have unknowingly signed away your house." The room spun. Had I really been that stupid? That trusting? However, the lawyer continued, if you signed under false pretenses, meaning they misrepresented what you were signing, that's fraud. We can challenge it in court. But first, we need to get copies of whatever you signed. Do you know where they keep important documents? In Chaik's study, I said. But I can't get back in the house. Obioma leaned forward. What if someone else could get in? Someone they wouldn't suspect. We all looked at each other. I knew what she was thinking. My other son, Dubam. My younger boy who lived in Abuja and worked for an oil company. Chaik and Dubam hadn't spoken in years after a fight over their father's funeral arrangements. But Dubam still called me every week to check on me. I'll call Dubam, I said. If I tell him what's happened, he'll come. But as we left the lawyer's office, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Mama Chaik. A woman's voice I didn't recognize. This is Dr. Nwosu from Lagos University Teaching Hospital. Your granddaughter, Chioma, has been brought in. There's been an accident. What has happened to little Chioma? And will Adana go back to that house to see her granddaughter? Don't go anywhere. The next chapter will shock you. Like and share if you're hooked. The taxi couldn't move fast enough through Lagos traffic. My heart pounded as I clutched Obioma's hand in the back seat. Little Chioma, my 7-year-old granddaughter, the sweet child who still called me Grandma Sweetie and snuck into my room at night for stories. What had happened to her? When we burst through the emergency room doors at LUTH, a nurse directed us to the pediatric ward. I ran down the corridor, my wrapper flapping, my swollen face drawing stares. None of it mattered. Chioma lay in a hospital bed, her small arm in a cast, bandages around her head. But she was awake. When she saw me, her face crumpled and she started crying. Grandma Sweetie, she sobbed. I rushed to her side, holding her good hand, kissing her forehead. I'm here, baby. I'm here. What happened? Before she could answer, Ngozi appeared in the doorway. Her eyes widened when she saw me, then narrowed with anger. What are you doing here? I turned to face her, still holding Chioma's hand. The hospital called me. What happened to my granddaughter? You have no right to be here, Ngozi hissed. You're not welcome in this family anymore. She's my grandmother. Chioma cried out. I want her here. A doctor entered, looking between us with confusion. Is there a problem? This child needs rest and calm, not family drama. I'm her grandmother, I said firmly. What happened to her? The doctor checked his chart. She fell down the stairs at home. Broken arm, minor concussion. She'll be fine, but she needs to stay overnight for observation. Are you the guardian? I am, Ngozi said quickly, stepping forward. Her father is on his way. This woman is no one. She doesn't live with us anymore. The way she said it, this woman, as if I was a stranger. As if I hadn't changed Chioma's diapers, hadn't walked her to her first day of school, hadn't been there for every birthday and every nightmare. Chioma, I said gently, ignoring Ngozi. How did you fall, sweetheart? The little girl's eyes darted to her mother, then back to me. Fear flickered across her face. Fear I'd never seen there before. I tripped. On the stairs. She was running when I told her not to, Ngozi said coldly. Children never listen. But something was wrong. I could feel it. Chioma was lying, and she was terrified. Can I speak to my granddaughter alone for a moment? I asked the doctor. Absolutely not, Ngozi snapped. Doctor, please have security remove this woman. She's not supposed to be anywhere near our family. But the doctor looked at Chioma, whose small hand was still gripping mine desperately. Does she make you feel unsafe, sweetheart? He asked the child. Chioma shook her head violently. No. I love Grandma Sweetie. Please don't make her go. The doctor made his decision. She can stay for a few minutes. Mother, perhaps you could step outside and wait for your husband. Ngozi's face turned purple with rage, but she couldn't argue with the doctor in front of hospital staff. She shot me a look that promised revenge and stalked out. As soon as she was gone, I leaned close to Chioma. Baby, tell Grandma the truth. How did you really fall? Tears spilled down her cheeks. Mommy and Daddy were fighting. About you. Daddy was so angry, throwing things. Mommy was crying. I got scared and tried to go to my room, but Daddy, he was coming up the stairs fast, and I was in the way, and he pushed past me really hard and I fell backward. My blood turned to ice. Chaik had pushed his own daughter. Maybe not on purpose, maybe in his rage. He simply didn't see her, but the result was the same. My granddaughter was in a hospital bed because of the violence in that house. Violence that started with him hitting me just hours ago. Listen to me carefully, I whispered. You didn't do anything wrong. This is not your fault. Do you understand? She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'm going to make sure you're safe, I promised. But I need you to be brave and tell the truth if anyone asks. Can you do that? Before she could answer, Chaik burst into the room. His eyes were wild, his clothes rumpled. When he saw me, his face contorted with fury. You! He pointed at me. Get away from my daughter! Daddy, no! Chioma cried. I want Grandma here. Chaik, I said, standing up slowly, putting myself between him and the bed. We need to talk about what's happening in your house. About why you hit me, why you threw me out, and now why our granddaughter is in the hospital. You think you can come here and... He stepped toward me, his fist clenching. The doctor moved quickly, pressing an emergency button. Security! We need security in Pediatric Ward 3 now. 2 security guards arrived within seconds. They positioned themselves between Chaik and me. The doctor spoke firmly. Sir, if you cannot control yourself, you'll be removed from this hospital. Your daughter needs peace, not violence. Chaik's hands were shaking. For a moment, I saw something in his eyes. Was it shame? Regret? But then Ngozi appeared behind him, placing her hand on his shoulder, and whatever I'd glimpsed disappeared. Come, baby, Ngozi cooed. Let's talk outside. Let security deal with this woman who won't leave our family alone. As they turned to leave, I spoke clearly, loudly enough for everyone in the corridor to hear. I saw the photos, Ngozi. You and your boyfriend at the Wheatbaker Hotel. Does Chaik know about him? She froze. Chaik's head whipped around to stare at his wife. What is she talking about? Nothing, Ngozi said quickly. She's lying, trying to cause trouble. You know how she is. But I saw the panic in her eyes. I'd struck a nerve. And from the look on Chaik's face, confusion mixed with dawning suspicion, he didn't know about the affair. Ask her about the man with the Range Rover, I said. The one she's been meeting in Ikoyi for months. I have photos. That's my uncle. Ngozi sputtered. We were discussing family business. You're insane. Family business in a hotel room? I smiled coldly. Your uncle must be very close to you. Chaik's face had gone pale. Ngozi, let's discuss this at home, she said, grabbing his arm. She's manipulating you, can't you see? This is what she does. They left, but I'd planted the seed. Doubt. Suspicion. The same poison they've been feeding me for years. Now I was giving it back to them. But as I sat back down with Chioma, who'd fallen asleep from exhaustion and medication, I felt no victory. Only sadness. My family was destroying itself from the inside, and I was watching it happen. Obayoma touched my shoulder. You did good, sister. Now he'll question everything. Maybe. But at what cost? I looked at my sleeping granddaughter and wondered if revenge was worth tearing this family apart even further. Then I remember the feel of Chaik's fist hitting my face. The humiliation of being thrown out of my own house. The years of small cruelties and dismissals. Yes, it was worth it. What do you think? Is Adana going too far? Or is she finally standing up for herself? Comment your thoughts. And if you're loving this story, hit subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. Dubam arrived from Abuja the next morning, walking into Obayoma's flat like an avenging angel. My younger son was taller than Chaik, broader in the shoulders, with his father's stern face and my determination. When he saw my swollen eye and split lip, his jaw clenched so hard I heard his teeth grind. Which hospital is he in? Dubam asked quietly. Who? My brother. Because I'm about to put him in one. No, I said firmly, gripping his arm. That's not how we're doing this. Violence got us here. Violence won't get us out. Dubam paced the small living room like a caged lion. He hit you, Mama. He put his hands on you. Our mother. I don't care what he's become. That's unforgivable. I know, I said softly, but I need you to be smart, not angry. We're going to fix this, but we need to do it the right way. Legal. Strategic. I told him everything. About the property documents I'd signed without reading, about Ngozi's affair, about Chioma in the hospital. With each revelation, his expression grew darker. "They're trying to steal your house," he said flatly. "That's what this is about. That whole property is worth how much now? 25 million naira. 35 million, Obayoma supplied. "I checked the market rates for Lekki yesterday." Dubam whistled. "So they beat you, throw you out, forge your signature on documents, and then what? Sell the house and disappear with the money, while carrying on an affair." He shook his head. Chaik was always weak, but I didn't think he was this far gone. "We don't know if Chaik knows about the affair," I said. "Yesterday I confronted Ngozi in front of him at the hospital. The look on his face. I think she's been playing him too." "Doesn't excuse what he did to you," Dubam said. "No," I agreed. "It doesn't. But it might mean we can use it." We spent the morning at Barrister Okonkwo's office. He'd done some investigating overnight, and his news wasn't good. "The documents you signed were indeed property transfer papers," he said grimly, sliding copies across his desk. "They were disguised as business registration forms, but buried in the fine print is a clause transferring your ownership interest to your son Chaik Okafor. The signature is yours." I had a handwriting expert confirm it. My stomach sank. "So they have my house." "Not quite. The transfer hasn't been finalized yet. It needs to be filed with the land registry, and there's a mandatory 30-day waiting period. We're on day 14, which means we have 16 days to challenge this before it becomes official." "How do we challenge it?" Dubam demanded. "We file an affidavit claiming fraud and misrepresentation. Your mother will testify that she was told the documents were for business purposes, not property transfer. We'll also need witnesses who can attest to her mental state, confirm she wouldn't willingly give away her primary residence. Character witnesses who can speak to the emotional manipulation she's been under." "I can testify," Obayoma said immediately. "So can I," Dubam added. Barrister Okonkwo nodded. "Good. But here's the challenge. Chaik and his wife will argue that you knew exactly what you were signing. They'll say you wanted to transfer the property to secure your son's future. It becomes a case of your word against theirs. Unless we have evidence of their real intentions," I said slowly. "Evidence that they planned this, that they manipulated me deliberately." "Exactly. Do you have anything like that? Recorded conversations? Text messages? Emails?" I thought of Ngozi's phone call I'd overheard, but I had no recording. Just my word. "What about the affair?" Dubam asked. "If we can prove Ngozi was having an affair and planning to take the house, doesn't that show a pattern of deception?" "It helps establish character," the lawyer said. "But it's not direct evidence of property fraud. We need something more concrete." "Then I'll get it," I said. "I need to get back into that house, even for a few hours. There must be something, documents, emails, phone records. Something that proves they were planning this." "Mama, they threw you out," Dubam said. "You can't just walk back in." "But you can," I said, turning to him. "You're Chaik's brother. He can't refuse you entry to visit your niece and nephew, especially now that Chioma's been hurt." Dubam caught on. "You want me to search the house while I'm there?" "I want you to find those documents," I said. Ngozi mentioned her uncle's lawyer. There must be contracts, agreements, something that shows this was planned. Check Chaik's study, and Ngozi's personal spaces. Women always keep secrets somewhere private. Barrister Okonkwo raised his hand. "I must advise against illegal search and seizure. If you take documents without permission, they may not be admissible in court." "What if I take photos?" Dubam asked. "Just with my phone, of documents that are lying out in the open." The lawyer smiled slightly. "Photos of documents in plain sight during a legal visit to your brother's house? That's different. That's just observant family concern." We had a plan. Dubam would go to Lekki that afternoon, supposedly to check on Chioma and confront Chaik about hitting me. While there, he'd search for evidence. But I had a second plan, one I didn't share with anyone yet. After we left the lawyer's office, I pulled Obayoma aside. "I need you to set up a meeting with that man, Ngozi's boyfriend." Her eyes widened. "Are you serious?" "Very. I want to know what his role is in all this. Is he just an affair? Or is he involved in the property scheme? Either way, I want to meet him face to face." "Adana, that's dangerous. Everything about this situation is dangerous. But I'm done being afraid. I'm done being the victim. I touched my still swollen lip. They started this. I'm going to finish it. That afternoon, while Dubam went to Lekki, Obayoma and I sat in a small restaurant in Ikoyi waiting. She'd sent a message to the man through a friend who knew him, said she had information about Ngozi Okafor that he'd want to hear. To my surprise, he'd agreed to meet. He walked in exactly on time. Tall, distinguished, expensive agbada flowing behind him. Chief Emeka Nwankwo. I'd found out his name through Obayoma's network. A property developer. A married man. And apparently, my daughter-in-law's lover. Mrs. Okafor, he said, sitting down across from us. Your friend said you had information for me. But I'm thinking you want information from me. He was sharp. I liked that. It would make this easier. My daughter-in-law is sleeping with you, I said bluntly. But I think you're more than just her side piece. I think you're involved in the plan to steal my house. His expression didn't change. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth. The question is, are you going to deny it, or are we going to make a deal? Chief Nwankwo leaned back, studying me with calculating eyes. What kind of deal? Information for protection. You tell me everything about Ngozi's plans, what she promised you, what the scheme is, who else is involved. In exchange, I keep your wife from finding out about your affair. I'm guessing a man of your position, with your wealth and reputation, would prefer to avoid a messy divorce and public scandal. It was a gamble. I was betting that he had more to lose than I did. He was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly he smiled. You're not what I expected, Mrs. Okafor. Ngozi described you as weak, broken, a doormat. I said. But I'm not anymore. So what's it going to be, Chief? Do we have a deal? Chief Nwankwo ordered palm wine and settled back in his chair like a man preparing to tell a long story. Ngozi came to me 8 months ago, he began. She said she was married to a weak man who couldn't provide for her the way she deserved. She wanted out, but she wanted to take everything with her. Her husband's mother owned a valuable property, and if she could get control of it, she could start a new life. My hands clenched under the table. 8 months. This had been planned for 8 months while I lived in that house, cooked their food, cared for their children. She seduced me. Chief continued matter-of-factly. I won't lie, I was attracted. She's beautiful, ambitious. We started an affair. At first, it was just physical. But then she told me about the house. She said if I helped her get control of it, we could sell it, split the money, and disappear together. Start fresh in Abuja or Port Harcourt. How were you supposed to help? Obayoma asked. My brother is a lawyer. Not a very ethical one, I'm afraid. He's helped me with creative property solutions before. Ngozi wanted him to draw up transfer documents that looked like something else. Something an old woman wouldn't read carefully before signing. And you agreed? I asked, my voice tight. I'm a businessman, Mrs. Okafor. I saw an opportunity. A 35 million naira property, split 3 ways. Ngozi, me, and my brother. That's over 11 million each. For my part, all I had to do was provide the lawyer and maintain the affair. 3 ways, I said sharply. Not 4. Where was Chaik in this split? Chief Nwankwo's smile turned cold. Chaik was never part of the deal. Once the house was transferred to his name, Ngozi planned to divorce him. Under Nigerian law, she'd get at least half of his assets in the divorce, including his share of the house. Then she'd sell, take her cut, and leave him with nothing. My son was being betrayed by his own wife. Despite everything Chaik had done to me, I felt a stab of pity. He thought he was stealing from his mother. He didn't know he was being stolen from too. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Why betray Ngozi? Because 2 days ago, she told me the plan had changed, he said, his voice hardening. Suddenly, she wanted to cut me out. Said she'd met someone else with more money, better connections. She was done with me. Just like that, after I'd put my brother's reputation on the line, after months of his affair. He was angry, a man scorned, and I could use that. Who's the new man? I asked. I don't know, but she was bragging about him. Said he was connected to government contracts, that he could make her rich beyond what I could offer. She laughed at me, Mrs. Okafor. Said I was just a stepping stone. This was better than I'd hoped. A cocky man with a bruised ego and detailed knowledge of the whole scheme. I need everything, I said. Copies of the fake documents. Text messages between you and Gozi. Proof that she planned to defraud both me and my son. Can you provide that? I can, he said. On one condition. When this goes to court, and I'm assuming you'll take this to court, I want immunity. I'll be your witness, but I don't want to face charges for my part in the fraud. You'll have to negotiate that with my lawyer, I said. But I think we can arrange something. We exchanged phone numbers. Chief Nwankwo promised to send me digital copies of everything by midnight. As he stood to leave, he paused. Your daughter-in-law is a dangerous woman, Mrs. Okafor. Smart, ruthless. She almost had me fooled into thinking she loved me. Watch your back. After he left, Obayoma let out a long breath. That was intense. That was exactly what we needed. I corrected. With his testimony and evidence, we can stop the property transfer and potentially get Ngozi charged with fraud. Maybe even Chaik, depending on how much he knew. My phone buzzed. A text from Dubum. Call me. Found something. Get here now. We rushed to Lekki in an Uber, my heart pounding the whole way. When we arrived at the house, my house, Dubum was waiting outside the gate, his face grim. They're not here, he said. Neighbors said they left with suitcases about an hour ago. In a hurry. I used the spare key Mama gave me last year. You still had it in your old bedroom, Mama, and searched the house. Suitcases. I repeated. Where would they go? I don't know, but look at this. He showed me his phone. Photos of documents from Chaik's study. Bank statements showing large transfers. 5 million naira moved to an account in Ngozi's maiden name 3 days ago. Another 3 million yesterday. They're liquidating, Obayoma said. Moving money out before the house sale even goes through. They must know you're onto them. That's not all, Dubum said quietly. I found Chioma's little brother, Kachi, locked in his room. He's 9 years old, and they locked him in. He said his parents told him to stay there until they got back, but he's been there for hours. No food, no water. He was crying when I found him. Horror washed over me. Where is he now? I brought him to Obayoma's flat. He's safe. But Mama, Dubum's voice cracked. What kind of people abandon their 9-year-old son and run away? What kind of father does that? Not my son. My son wouldn't do that. Except he had. He'd beaten me. He'd hurt Chioma accidentally in his rage. And now he'd abandon Kachi to chase money and hide from consequences. They're running, I said slowly. They know I'm coming for them. But they don't know I've already gotten to Chief Nwankwo. They don't know I have evidence. We drove to Obayoma's flat and found Kachi sitting on the couch, eating rice and stew like he hadn't seen food in days. His eyes were red from crying. When he saw me, he jumped up and ran into my arms. Grandma, you came back. Mommy said you were gone forever, that you didn't love us anymore. I held him tight, fighting back tears. I never stopped loving you, baby. Never. But we need to talk about your mommy and daddy. Where did they say they were going? I don't know. They were fighting. Mommy was yelling about how daddy ruined everything, how he was supposed to keep you under control, but instead he got violent and people saw. She said they needed to leave before something. I didn't understand. Before I could stop the property transfer, I murmured. Before the police got involved. They're running. Dubum was already on his phone to Barrister Okonkwo. We need to act fast. If they're fleeing, we need to freeze their accounts, get an injunction, something. But I was thinking about something else. Chioma was still in the hospital. They'd left one child locked in a room and another recovering from injuries in a hospital bed. What kind of parents did that? The kind who only cared about money. My phone buzzed. An email from Chief Nwankwo. True to his word, he'd send everything. Contracts with his lawyer brother's letterhead, text messages with Ngozi planning the fraud, even voice recordings of their pillow talk where she discussed cutting Chaik out of the deal after the divorce. It was enough. More than enough. We have them, I said, showing Dubum and Obayoma the emails. We have everything we need to stop this. But even as I said it, a cold feeling settled over me. Chaik and Ngozi were desperate now. Desperate people did dangerous things. They'd already shown they were capable of violence, of abandoning their children. What else would they do to protect themselves? My question was answered an hour later when Barrister Okonkwo called with panic in his voice. Mrs. Okafor, there's been a development. Chaik and Ngozi went to the police station in Lekki. They filed a report claiming you assaulted Ngozi, threatened their children, and have been harassing them for months. They're saying you're mentally unstable, that you've been having episodes, and that you're dangerous. My blood ran cold. That's insane. I have witnesses. My injuries prove Chaik hit me, not the other way around. I know, but they got there first. They're spinning a narrative that you've been abusive, and they've been trying to protect their family. They even got a restraining order. If you go near them, or their property, you'll be arrested. Their property. My house. The one I'd worked for, paid for, that had my name on the deed. And now I couldn't even go near it. This is a preemptive strike, the lawyer continued. They know you're coming for them legally, so they're trying to discredit you first. Make you look like the aggressor, the unstable one. It's actually a smart move. How do we fight this? I demanded. We go to court Monday morning with our evidence. We show that they're the ones committing fraud, abandoning their children, manipulating you. But until then, you need to be very careful. Don't go near that house. Don't contact them directly. Let me handle everything through legal channels. After he hung up, I sat in stunned silence. They'd outmaneuvered me. While I was gathering evidence, they were creating a false narrative that painted me as the villain. Mama, Dubam said gently, we have Kachi. He's a witness to them abandoning him. We have medical records of Chioma's injuries. We have Chief Nwankwo's testimony. They can spin all the stories they want. The evidence doesn't lie. He was right. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. That night, lying on Obayoma's couch with young Kachi asleep beside me, he'd refused to let go of my hand. I thought about how far I'd fallen and how far I'd climbed back up in just 3 days. From a beaten woman thrown into the street to someone with lawyers, evidence, and allies, but I'd also lost my son. Maybe forever. Chaik had chosen his wife, chosen money over his own mother, over his own children even. Was there any coming back from that? My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Stop now and we'll drop the restraining order. Keep pushing and you'll lose everything. Including your grandchildren. They were threatening me. Using my own grandchildren as weapons that I deleted the text and turned off my phone. They didn't understand yet. I'd already lost everything the night they threw me out of my house. I had nothing left to lose, which made me far more dangerous than they realized. Things are heating up. Will Adana's evidence be enough to bring down Chaik and Ngozi? Comment what you think will happen. Don't forget to share the story with someone who loves real-life drama. Monday morning came with gray skies threatening rain, appropriate for the storm that was about to break. I dressed carefully in my best traditional attire, the George wrapper and blouse I'd worn to Emika's funeral 3 years ago. I wanted to look dignified, respectable, like a proper widow and mother, not the mentally unstable woman Ngozi had described to the police. Barrister Okonkwo met us at the Lagos State High Court in Igbosir. He was carrying a briefcase full of evidence. Chief Nwankwo's documents, photos of my injuries, medical reports from Chioma's hospital stay, bank transfer records, everything. They're already inside, he told me quietly. Chaik, Ngozi, and their lawyer, a man named Bar. Adewale. He's known for defending fraud cases. Expensive but effective. Are they using Ngozi's uncle's lawyer? I asked. Her lover's brother? No, they're smarter than that. They know that connection could be traced. This is a clean hire, but we have something they don't know about yet. He gestured behind me. Chief Emeka Nwankwo was walking up the courthouse steps, dressed in an immaculate suit, looking every inch the respectable businessman. When he reached us, he nodded curtly. Mrs. Okafor, I've brought my lawyer brother as well, not to represent anyone, but to testify about his role in creating the fraudulent documents. He's agreed to cooperate in exchange for immunity. Why would he do that? Dubam asked suspiciously. Because I'm his older brother and I told him to, Chief Nwankwo said flatly. And because Ngozi threatened to expose some of his other creative legal work unless he helped her cut me out of the deal. He'd rather face one fraud charge with immunity than have his entire practice investigated. The courtroom was smaller than I'd imagined from TV shows. We sat on hard wooden benches while the judge reviewed the case files. When I finally saw Chaik walk in, my breath caught. He looked terrible. His eyes were hollow, his face drawn. He'd lost weight. Ngozi, by contrast, looked immaculate. hair done, makeup perfect, designer dress. She was playing the role of respectable wife to perfection. When Chaik's eyes met mine across the courtroom, I saw something flicker there. Shame. Fear. But Ngozi touched his arm and whispered something, and his face hardened again. The judge, Justice Adeyemi, was a stern woman in her 60s with sharp eyes that missed nothing. She called the court to order and addressed both legal teams. This is a petition to halt a property transfer and freeze assets related to alleged fraud. The respondents have filed a counterclaim of harassment and have obtained a restraining order. We'll hear the petitioner's case first. Barrister Okonkwo stood and outlined our case with precision. The forged documents, the manipulation, the affair, the abandoned children, the conspiracy to defraud. He called me to the witness stand first. I told my story, the years of living with Chaik and Ngozi, the gradual erosion of my dignity, the overheard phone call, and finally, the night I was beaten and thrown out. I kept my voice steady, factual, emotional but not hysterical. Ngozi's lawyer, Bar Adewale, cross-examined me aggressively. Mrs. Okafor, isn't it true that you've been suffering from depression since your husband's death? That you've been on medication? I was on antidepressants for 6 months after Emeka died, I admitted. Many widows are. That doesn't make me mentally unstable. Isn't it true that you became increasingly paranoid, accusing my clients of plotting against you without evidence? I had evidence. I overheard conversations. I saw documents. Documents you now can't produce. Conversations with no recordings. That sounds like paranoia to me, Mrs. Okafor. But then Barrister Okonkwo called Chief Nwankwo to the stand. The courtroom went silent as this distinguished-looking man swore on the Bible and began to testify. He explained the entire scheme, how Ngozi had approached him, how his brother had created the fake documents, how they planned to split the property sale 3 ways. He produced text messages, emails, even the voice recordings. I watched Ngozi's face go pale. She whispered frantically to her lawyer, but the damage was done. Then Chief Nwankwo's brother took the stand and confirmed everything, producing the original document templates with timestamps showing they were created before I'd ever signed anything. Proof that this was premeditated fraud, not a legitimate property transfer. Your Honor, Barrister Okonkwo said, we also have evidence that the respondents abandoned their 9-year-old son in a locked room for over 6 hours while they fled. We have the child here today, if the court wishes to hear his testimony. Justice Adeyemi's face darkened. You left a child locked in a room? While running from legal consequences. Chaik finally spoke, his voice hoarse. We were going to come back. We just needed time to think. With suitcases, the judge asked coldly. You packed suitcases to think? Ngozi stood suddenly. This is absurd. That woman has been tormenting us for months. She's lying about everything, the affair, the documents, all of it. She's trying to steal from her own son. Mrs. Okafor, Justice Adeyemi said sharply, sit down. You'll have your chance to testify. But Ngozi was unraveling. He's lying. She pointed at Chief Nwankwo. I barely know this man. He's been stalking me, harassing me. My husband will confirm. She looked at Chaik desperately. But Chaik was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. All the evidence, the texts, the voice recordings, the testimony, was crashing down on him. His wife had been playing him, using him, planning to divorce him and take everything. Chaik, Ngozi said, her voice breaking. Baby, tell them. Tell them I would never. Is it true? Chaik asked quietly. Were you sleeping with him? Were you planning to divorce me? The courtroom held its breath. Ngozi's mouth opened and closed. Then she did something I didn't expect. She laughed, a high, brittle sound that sent chills down my spine. You stupid man, she said. Yes, it's all true. Every word. You think I married you for love? You were a means to an end. Your mother's property, your father's insurance money, all of it. And you made it so easy, so pathetically easy. Yes, Ngozi. Whatever you say, Ngozi. You were so desperate to please me, you didn't see what was right in front of your face. Chaik looked like she'd struck him. But our children are probably not even yours, she said viciously. Did you ever wonder why Kachi looks nothing like you? Why Chioma has her uncle's eyes? The courtroom erupted. Justice Adeyemi banged her gavel, calling for order. Barrister Adewale was trying to physically restrain his client, telling her to stop talking. But Ngozi was past caring, past strategy. She was a cornered animal lashing out. "I should have gotten rid of all of you when I had the chance," she snarled, looking at me. "But you just wouldn't die, you old witch. Just wouldn't stay down. Well, guess what? I'm still leaving with something. I transferred money out days ago. Money you'll never find. I'll disappear and start over, and there's nothing any of you can do about it." Security was moving toward her now. But Chaik was standing, his face white with shock, his hands trembling. "My children," he whispered. "You're saying my children aren't mine?" For the first time, I saw something almost like regret cross Ngozi's face. But it was gone in an instant. "They're leverage," she said coldly. "That's all they ever were." Justice Adeyemi adjourned the court after Ngozi's outburst, declaring she needed time to review the evidence and testimonies. She granted an immediate injunction freezing all assets related to the property and ordered Chaik and Ngozi to surrender their passports. Ngozi was taken into custody pending fraud charges. Chaik was released but ordered to remain in Lagos. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Somehow the case had leaked and become tabloid fodder. Son beats elderly mother over saltless food. Property fraud scheme exposed in court. Wife admits children may not be husbands. The headlines would be vicious. Dubam shielded me from the cameras while we rushed to his car. But before we could leave, Chaik appeared, pushing through the crowd. His face was streaked with tears. "Mama," he called out. "Mama, please." Dubam moved to block him, but I put my hand on my son's arm. "Let him speak." Chaik stumbled toward me, broken in a way I'd never seen him. "Mama, I didn't know. About the affair, about the plan to cut me out. I swear I didn't know about that part. I thought we were just securing the property for our family, making sure it stayed with us. Ngozi said it was for the children's future." "You knew you were tricking me into signing documents I didn't understand," I said quietly. "You knew what you were doing when you threw me out of my own house. When you hit me." His face crumpled. "I was so angry that night. She'd been in my ear for months, saying you were trying to control us, that you'd take everything back if we weren't careful. I was scared, and stupid, and wrong. So wrong, Mama. You were abused too," I said, and the words surprised even me. But they were true. Ngozi had manipulated him, isolated him from his brother, turned him against me. She'd been emotionally manipulating Chaik for years. But that doesn't excuse what you did. You still made choices. You still raised your hand to your mother. "I know." He was sobbing now, in full view of the cameras and reporters. "I know, and I'll never forgive myself. But please, Mama, the children. Whatever happens to me, whatever I deserve, please don't let them suffer for this. Chioma and Kachi need you. Whether they're biologically mine or not, I've raised them. I love them. Please." My heart, which I'd worked so hard to harden against him, cracked a little. Because he was right, the children were innocent in all this. They'd been abandoned, neglected, used as pawns. They needed stability. They needed love. "Where are they now?" I asked. "Chioma's still in the hospital. She's being discharged today. Kachi is with your sister, I heard. Can I see them?" "You can see them at my sister's house," I said carefully. "Under supervision. We need to figure out what happens next." "But Chaik," I looked him in the eyes. "You need help. Professional help. Therapy. You can't be around those children until you've dealt with your anger, your issues. Do you understand?" He nodded frantically. "Anything, Mama. Anything you say." As we drove away, Dubam was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, "You're really going to let him back into your life? After everything?" "I don't know yet," I admitted. "But those children need their grandmother. And maybe, eventually, they'll need their father too. If he can become someone worthy of being their father. And if he can't, then I'll raise them myself," I said firmly. The way I should have raised him better the first time. We picked up Chioma from the hospital and brought her to Obayoma's flat where Kachi was waiting. When the children saw each other, they ran together, holding each other tight. Chioma's arm was still in a cast, but she was healing. Physically, anyway. "Is Mommy coming back?" Kachi asked me quietly that evening. "No, baby. I said gently. Mommy did some bad things, and she has to face consequences. But you know what? You have me. You have Uncle Dubum. You have Auntie Obioma. And maybe if he works very hard to be better, you'll have your daddy too. But where will we live? Chioma asked. Our house was never really ours, was it? Smart girl. She'd heard more than we realized. It was my house first. I told her honestly. Your grandfather and I built that home together. And now it's going to be our home again. Yours, mine, your brother's. If you want it to be. Can we really stay with you, Grandma? Kachi's eyes were wide with hope. Forever, I promised. As long as you need me. That night, after the children finally fell asleep, I sat with Obioma and Dubum in the small kitchen. Barrister Okonkwo had called with updates. The court would rule in our favor within the week. The property transfer would be voided. Ngozi would face fraud charges and likely prison time. The money she transferred out was being traced. Much of it was still in accounts that could be frozen and recovered. And Chaik, Barrister Okonkwo, said the court was still deciding whether he would face charges. He could argue he was also a victim of Ngozi's manipulation, or he could be charged as an accessory to fraud. It depended on how much the court believed he knew. What do you want to happen to him? Dubum asked me. I thought about the little boy who used to hold my hand walking to primary school. The teenager who'd worked part-time jobs to help pay for his own education because he didn't want to burden us. The young man who'd cried at his father's funeral and promised me he'd always take care of me. Where had that boy gone? When did he become a man who could hit his mother? I want him to heal, I finally said. I want him to become the man his father believed he could be. But I don't know if that's possible. People can change, Obioma said softly. If they really want to. If they're willing to do the work. Maybe, I said. But I'd seen too much cruelty, too much selfishness, to fully believe it. The next morning, I woke to find Chaik sitting on Obioma's front steps. He'd been there all night, he said, sleeping on concrete, wanting to be close to his children even if he couldn't see them. I've been thinking, he said when I came out, about everything I've done, everything I've become. I don't know if I can fix it, Mama, but I want to try. I've already called a therapist. I'm enrolling in anger management classes, and I'm going to make amends, whatever that takes. Amends aren't just words, Chaik, I said. They're actions. Consistent, long-term actions. I know. I'm ready to do the work. I studied his face, red-eyed, unshaven, humble in a way I'd never seen him. Was this real? Or just another manipulation? You can see the children for 1 hour today, I decided. Supervised. And then we'll see. Day by day. Step by step. But Chaik, I grabbed his hand. If you ever raise your hand to me or anyone else in anger again, you will lose everything. Not just the property. Not just money. You will lose me, your children, your brother. Everyone. Do you understand? I understand, Mama. That afternoon, I watched through the window as Chaik sat with Kachi and Chioma in Obioma's small backyard. He was teaching them a clapping game, the same one his father had taught him years ago. The children were laughing. Chaik was crying and smiling at the same time. Maybe people could change. Maybe not everyone could, but some could. Or maybe I was just a foolish old woman who wanted to believe her son was still redeemable. Either way, I'd gotten my house back. I'd exposed the fraud. I'd protected my grandchildren. Whatever happened with Chaik from here was up to him. But there was still one loose end. The money Ngozi had transferred out. According to Barrister Okonkwo, she'd moved nearly 8 million naira to accounts in Ghana and Benin Republic before she was arrested. Money that legally belonged to me, since it had come from liquidating assets that were part of the fraudulent scheme. I wanted that money back. Not for revenge, not for greed, but because it was mine, and because I'd needed to raise 2 grandchildren and rebuild the life that had been stolen from me. We'll track it down, Barrister Okonkwo assured me. We have forensic accountants working on it now. These things take time, but we'll find it. But that night, I received an email from an anonymous account. No subject line. Just a message. The money is in an account in Accra. I'll tell you where, but I want something in exchange. Meet me at the restaurant where we first talked. Tomorrow at noon. Come alone. It was from Chief Nwankwo. Even after testifying, he was still playing games. Still trying to negotiate. Don't go. Dubam said when I showed him the email. It's a trap. He's probably working with Ngozi somehow. Or he legitimately knows where the money is and wants something. I countered. Either way, I'm going. But not alone. You'll be at the next table, just in case. The next day, I walked into that same restaurant in Ikoyi where I'd first confronted Chief Nwankwo. He was already there, looking less polished than before. Tired. Worried. Mrs. Okafor, he said as I sat down. Thank you for coming. What do you want? I asked bluntly. Protection, he said. Ngozi has threatened me from jail. She says if she's going down, she's taking everyone with her. She's threatening to expose business, deals I've been involved in, illegal deals. I could lose everything. My company, my marriage, possibly my freedom. And you want me to help you? After you helped defraud me. I gave you evidence, he reminded me. I testified. I turned on her. That should count for something. It counts for immunity in my case, I said. That's what we agreed on. Nothing more. Then let me buy more from you. He slid an envelope across the table. Inside is the account information for where Ngozi hid your money. 8.2 million naira, sitting in a business account under a false name in Accra. I helped her set it up. I know exactly how to access it. I opened the envelope. Bank details, account numbers, passwords, everything. What do you want in return? I asked. A letter. A signed statement saying I cooperated fully with your case and that you believe I was also a victim of Ngozi's manipulation. Something I can show the authorities if she starts making accusations. It was a reasonable request. Maybe too reasonable. How do I know this information is real? I asked. Call the bank. Verify the account exists. I'll wait. I did. Using my phone right there at the table, I called the Ghana Commercial Bank branch listed on the documents. After being transferred 3 times and providing security answers, all in the envelope, I confirmed the account existed. The balance was 8.2 million naira, as Chief Nwankwo had said. If I give you this letter, I said slowly, you'll stay away from my family forever. No contact with Chaik, no business deals, nothing. You disappear from our lives completely. Gladly, he said. I want nothing more to do with this mess. I wrote the letter by hand, right there in the restaurant. Barrister Okonkwo would probably be furious with me for doing this without consulting him first, but I didn't care. I wanted my money back. I wanted this finished. As Chief Nwankwo left with his letter, Dubam appeared at my table. He'd been watching from across the restaurant the whole time. Did you get what you needed? He asked. I got everything, I said, holding up the envelope. Let's go get my money back. Getting money out of a Ghana bank from Nigeria proved more complicated than I'd anticipated. Despite having all the account information, the bank required me to appear in person to make any withdrawals over a certain amount, which meant I needed to travel to Accra. I'm coming with you, Dubam insisted. You're not doing this alone. We left Chioma and Kachi with Obioma and flew to Ghana 3 days later. The flight was short, but it felt like crossing into another world, one where I could finally close this chapter and start rebuilding. The Ghana Commercial Bank branch in OSU, Accra, was modern and busy. The manager, Mr. Mensah, was a portly man with kind eyes who listened carefully to our story. This is unusual, he admitted, but your documents seem to be in order. The account was opened 6 months ago by a Nigerian woman using a Ghanaian business registration. Quite clever, actually. It would be almost impossible to trace without insider knowledge. Can you transfer the funds to my Nigerian account? I asked. I can, but there will be fees and it will take several business days. Alternatively, I can give you a bank draft you can deposit in Nigeria immediately. The draft, I said. I want this finished. While we waited for the paperwork to be processed, Dubam and I walked through OSU, taking in the sights of Accra. The city was vibrant, busy, full of life. For a moment, I let myself imagine what it would be like to just disappear here. To take the money, change my name, start over completely away from all the pain and betrayal. But I couldn't. I had grandchildren who needed me, a son who was trying to rebuild himself, a sister who'd stood by me through everything. I had a life in Lagos, messy and complicated as it was. You're thinking about running, Dubam said, reading my face. Just for a moment, I admitted. I wouldn't blame you if you did. But Mama, those kids need you. And honestly, I think Chaik needs you too, even if he doesn't deserve you. We collected the bank draft, 8.2 million naira minus banking fees, and flew back to Lagos that evening. I carried that draft like it was made of gold. In a way it was. It was my security, my future, my grandchildren's education fund. But when we arrived at Obayoma's flat, we found chaos. Chaik was there, arguing with Obayoma, while the children huddled on the couch, looking terrified. He looked wild, desperate. "Mama," he shouted when he saw me. Tell them I'm not taking the children. I just want to talk to them, but your sister won't let me. Because you showed up drunk." Obayoma shot back, drunk and angry, and demanding to see them at 10 o'clock at night. I could smell the alcohol on him from across the room. The progress I thought he'd made, the therapy, the promises, had evaporated. He'd relapsed. "Chaik," I said quietly, dangerously. "We had an agreement. You were supposed to be getting help. What happened?" "She's pregnant," he blurted out. "Ngozi. She told me through her lawyer today. She's pregnant, and she says it's mine, but she's not sure. That it could be his, the other man's. And I couldn't handle it, Mama. I couldn't breathe. So I had a few drinks and you came here and scared your children," I finished coldly. "Look at them, Chaik. Look at their faces." He turned and saw Kachi and Chioma pressed against each other on the couch, eyes wide with fear. The same fear I'd seen on Chioma's face in the hospital when I'd asked her how she fell. Something broke in Chaik then. He collapsed onto his knees, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm trying. I swear I'm trying, but I don't know how to fix this." "How to fix me?" "You can't fix it with alcohol," I said. "You can't fix it by scaring your children. You fix it by doing the hard work every single day, even when it hurts. Especially when it hurts." "I don't know if I can," he whispered. "Then you need more help than therapy can provide," I said. "You need inpatient treatment, a rehabilitation center where you can work through everything, the anger, the manipulation you suffered, the betrayal, the addiction. All of it." "I can't afford that," he said. "But I can," I replied. "I just retrieved 8 million naira. Some of it could go towards saving my son, if he was willing to be saved." The next week moved quickly. I found a reputable rehabilitation center in Ibadan that specialized in trauma, addiction, and emotional recovery. It wasn't cheap. 3 months of inpatient care would cost nearly 1 million naira. But if it could help Chaik become a real father to his children again, it was worth it. The court finally issued its ruling. The property transfer was declared fraudulent and void. My house was completely mine again, with Chaik's name removed from the deed. Ngozi was sentenced to 3 years in prison for fraud, with additional charges for child abandonment and conspiracy. The judge was particularly harsh about her confession in court regarding the children's paternity. "You used these children as weapons and bargaining chips," Justice Adeyemi had said during sentencing. "You admitted to manipulating everyone around you for financial gain. You showed no remorse, only anger at being caught. This court has no sympathy for you." Chaik was not charged as an accessory. The court accepted that he'd also been manipulated by Ngozi, though the judge made it clear this didn't excuse his violence toward me. He was ordered to complete anger management and therapy, which dovetailed perfectly with the rehab program. On the day Chaik entered the rehab center in Ibadan, I drove him there myself. Dubam had wanted to come, but I told him this was something I needed to do alone. 3 months, I told Chaik as we stood outside the facility. 3 months to do the work, to face everything you've become, to decide who you want to be. When you come out, your children will be waiting. But they'll only accept you back if you've truly changed. "And you, Mama?" he asked quietly. "Will you accept me back?" I thought about it. "I'll never forget what you did to me," I said honestly. "The physical pain faded, but the betrayal? That stays. But I'll always be your mother. And if you do the work, real, hard, genuine work, then yes, we can rebuild something. Maybe not what we had before, but something new. Something honest." He hugged me then, carefully, asking permission first. I let him, because despite everything, he was still my son. As I drove back to Lagos, I felt lighter than I had in years. The house was mine again. The money was recovered and safely in my account. My grandchildren were safe. My son was getting help. It wasn't a perfect ending. There were still complications. Ngozi's pregnancy, if it was even real, the question of the children's paternity, the long road of Chaik's recovery. But it was an ending I could live with. When I arrived back at the house in Lekki, my house, I stood outside for a long moment before going in. The last time I'd been here, Chaik had thrown me out onto the street with nothing. Now I was returning as the sole owner, with my head held high. Dubam had already moved some of our things back in. Obioma had cleaned and aired out the rooms. The children's belongings were arranged in their bedrooms. I decided they would each have their own space, something Ngozi had never allowed, always making them share one small room while she and Chaik occupied the master suite. "Welcome home, Mama," Dubam said as I walked through the door home. It felt strange to say it, after everything. But it was true. That night, I tucked Chioma and Kachi into their beds. Chioma's cast had been removed, though her arm was still weak. Kachi had started smiling again, slowly coming out of the shell he'd retreated into during the chaos. "Grandma," Chioma said as I was about to turn off her light, "are we bad children?" "What? No. Why would you think that?" "Because Mommy left us, and Daddy got so angry all the time. I thought maybe we did something wrong." My heart broke. I sat on the edge of her bed and took her small hand. "Listen to me carefully. None of this was your fault. Not one single bit. What happened between the adults in your life had nothing to do with you and your brother. You are wonderful, brilliant, beautiful children, and you are loved. So loved. By you. By me. By Uncle Dubam. By Auntie Obioma. And by your father, even though he's sick right now and needs to get better. But always, always by me." She fell asleep holding my hand, and I sat there in the darkness thinking about all the ways we fail our children. All the ways our own pain and selfishness and trauma get passed down to them like a curse they never asked for, but it didn't have to continue. I could break that cycle. I could raise these children with love and stability and honesty. I could show them what healthy relationships looked like, what it meant to work through problems instead of running from them or lashing out. The next morning, I received a call from the rehabilitation center. "Chaik wanted to speak to me." "Mama," his voice was hoarse on the phone. "I've only been here one day, but they're already making me confront things I've been avoiding for years. About my relationship with Papa before he died. About how I felt abandoned when you were grieving him and I thought you'd forgotten about me. About how Ngozi used that loneliness against me. Emeka's death was hard on all of us," I said softly. "Maybe I didn't see how much you were hurting because I was drowning in my own pain. That's not your fault. I was a grown man. I should have talked to you, gone to therapy then instead of letting Ngozi tell me she was the only one who understood me. But I'm seeing it now. How she isolated me from you, from Dubam, from anyone who might have questioned her influence. That's what manipulators do," I said. "They find the vulnerable places and exploit them. I'm going to do better, Mama. I promise." "I know you will," I said. And surprisingly, I believe it. 2 weeks later, I was in the kitchen preparing dinner when someone knocked on the gate. Through the security camera, I saw a woman I didn't recognize, young, maybe mid-20s, well-dressed but nervous. "Who are you?" I asked through the intercom. "My name is Adiz. I'm Chief Nwankwo's daughter. I need to speak with you about Ngozi." Curiosity overrode caution. I let her in. She sat in my living room, hands twisting in her lap, clearly uncomfortable. "I'm sorry to come unannounced, but my father said you were the only person who might listen to what I have to say." "Go on." "Ngozi and I were best friends in university. Roommates. I knew her before she met your son, before she became this person she is now. And I need you to know something. The children, Chioma and Kachi, they're your son's children. Biologically. Definitely." I sat forward. "How do you know?" "Because I was there when Ngozi took pregnancy tests for both of them. I saw how happy she was. She loved Chaik then, or at least I thought she did. The children are his. She only said that in court to hurt him, to destroy him completely. It was her final act of cruelty." Relief washed over me. Not that it would have changed how I felt about my grandchildren, but it would change everything for Chaik. To know that the children he'd raised were truly his. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "Because what Ngozi did was evil. And because those children deserve to know the truth. My father told me how you fought for them, how you protected them. They're lucky to have you. Why did Ngozi become this way? I asked. If she was your friend, you must have seen something. Adiz was quiet for a long moment. Her father was abusive. Her mother stayed and endured it for years before she finally died. Cancer, officially, but I think it was really heartbreak and exhaustion. Ngozi swore she'd never be weak like her mother. She'd never let a man control her. But somewhere along the way, she twisted that into believing she had to control and manipulate everyone else first. Strike before being struck. It didn't excuse what Ngozi had done, but it explained it. Hurt people, and the cycle continued until someone was brave enough to break it. Thank you for telling me, I said. Can you put this in writing? An affidavit? It would help Chaik in his custody case when he gets out of rehab. I already have, she said, pulling an envelope from her bag. I had it notarized yesterday. My father said you'd know what to do with it. After she left, I called the rehabilitation center and asked them to give Chaik a message. His children are his. Biologically, legally, in every way. Ngozi lied in court. The counselor who took my message said Chaik wept when he heard. Happy tears, for once that as the weeks passed, life settled into a new rhythm. I enrolled the children in a good private school near the house. Chioma joined the school choir and discovered she loved singing. Kachi joined the football team and came alive on the field, and I started a small catering business from home, using the recipes I'd perfected over years of cooking for an ungrateful family. Now I cooked for parties, weddings, corporate events. The money was good, and it gave me purpose beyond just being a grandmother. Dubam was promoted at his company in Abuja, but started working remotely a few days a week so he could spend more time with us in Lagos. He and his girlfriend got engaged, and she was wonderful with the children. And Chaik? He completed his 3-month program and came home a changed man. Not perfect. He still had hard days, still struggled with anger and shame, but he was in ongoing therapy, attending AA meetings, doing the work. The first time he saw the children after rehab, he didn't rush to hug them. He knelt down at their level and said, I know I scared you. I know I hurt you by not being there when you needed me. I'm sorry. I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving to you that I can be the father you deserve. But I understand if you're not ready to trust me yet. Kachi had looked at me, seeking permission. I'd nodded, and then my grandson had walked into his father's arms. Chioma took longer. She was warier, more guarded. But slowly, over weeks and months, she began to let Chaik back in. The custody arrangement was unconventional. The children lived with me primarily, but Chaik visited 3 times a week for supervised time that gradually became unsupervised as he proved himself trustworthy. He got a modest apartment in Suralere, got a job managing a logistics company, and started rebuilding his life from the ground up. He and I really talked, for the first time in years. About his father's death, about my grief, about how we'd failed each other, about forgiveness, not forgetting, but choosing to move forward anyway. I'll never be able to repay you for what you did, Mama, he said one evening. For not giving up on me, for saving my children, for giving me a chance to be better. You repay me by being better, I said simply. Every single day. One afternoon, about 6 months after everything had settled, I was in the garden with the children when a car pulled up. A woman got out, older than Ngozi but with the same eyes. Ngozi's mother, I realized. I'd met her only once, briefly at the wedding. Mrs. Okafor, she said, approaching hesitantly. I'm Ifeoma Namdi, Ngozi's mother. May I speak with you? We sat on the veranda while the children played in the yard, far enough away not to hear. I came to apologize, she said quietly, for what my daughter did to you and your family. I raised her, and somehow I failed to teach her basic human decency. You didn't fail, I said gently. Sometimes our children make choices we can't control. Adiz told me about your husband, about what you endured. Her eyes filled with tears. I thought I was teaching her to be strong by staying, by enduring. I thought I was showing her that family was worth fighting for. But all I taught her was that love meant suffering, and she decided she'd rather make others suffer than suffer herself. That wasn't your fault, I said. Wasn't it? I've been visiting her in prison. She's still so angry. Still so convinced everyone wronged her. I don't know if she'll ever take responsibility for what she did. She paused, but I wanted to ask, the children, my grandchildren, Would you allow me to be part of their lives? I know I have no right to ask, but they should know their grandmother, I interrupted. Both sides of their family. As long as you understand that I'm their primary guardian, and what I say goes. Of course. Of course. Thank you. So another person was added to our strange, reconstructed family. Ifioma visited once a month, always respectful of boundaries, always grateful for the opportunity. Life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. Days when Chioma had nightmares about her mother leaving. Days when Kachi asked questions about why his family was so different from his friends' families. Days when Chaik struggled with guilt and shame and had to fight not to relapse. But there were good days too. More good days than bad. Eventually, justice has been served, but healing is just beginning. Can this family truly move forward? One more chapter to go. Like and comment if you've been with us from the start. A year after I'd been thrown out onto the street, I stood in my kitchen preparing jollof rice, with plenty of salt this time. The children were at school, Dubam was visiting for the weekend, and I was catering a small party for Obayoma's church group. Life had found a new normal. The house was alive with laughter again. The business was thriving. The children were healing. But there were still complications I hadn't resolved. Ngozi's prison sentence was almost halfway complete, and she'd been sending letters. Not to Chaik or the children, but to me. Long, rambling letters that alternated between justification and something that might have been remorse. I'd burned the first few without reading them. But Ifioma had asked me to give her daughter a chance to explain herself, so I'd started reading them. The latest one lay on my kitchen counter now. Mrs. Okafor, I know you won't believe this, but I never intended for things to go as far as they did. It started small, just wanting security, wanting to make sure we'd be okay financially. But then it became about winning. About proving I was smarter than everyone else. I told myself you were trying to control us, that you deserved what happened. I told myself so many lies that I started believing them. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I see now what I destroyed. I destroyed a family. My children's childhood. My husband's mental health. Your sense of safety in your own home. And I did it all for money I never even got to enjoy. I'm sorry. I know those words aren't enough, but they're all I have. I didn't know if I believed her. People said a lot of things in prison when they had time to think about their choices. But Ifioma said Ngozi was different lately, quieter, more reflective. She'd started a Bible study group in prison, was taking parenting classes, even though she wouldn't see her children for years. Maybe she was changing. Maybe she wasn't. Either way, she'd have to live with the consequences of her actions. My phone rang. It was Barrister Okonkwo. Mrs. Okafor, I have some interesting news. Ngozi's lawyer has reached out about a possible early parole arrangement. She's been a model prisoner, apparently, and there's a program for first-time nonviolent offenders. She could be out in another year instead of 18 months. My stomach clenched. And she wants what? My blessing. Not exactly. She's willing to permanently sign away all parental rights to the children in exchange for your support for her parole application. Full custody to you. Supervised visitation only if you allow it. No child support claims, nothing. She wants out, and she's willing to give up everything to get out. I should have felt victorious. This was complete surrender. But instead, I felt sad. Those children deserved a mother who fought for them, not one who traded them for freedom. I need to think about it, I said. And I need to talk to Chaik. They're his children, too. That evening, Chaik came over for dinner. He'd been doing so well. Steady at his job, consistent with therapy, building real relationships with his kids. He'd even started dating a woman from his AA group, someone who understood recovery and trauma. I told him about Ngozi's offer. He was quiet for a long time, pushing rice around his plate. I spent months blaming Ngozi for everything, he finally said. And she is responsible for a lot. But I'm responsible too. For believing her lies. For letting her isolate me. For raising my hand to you. If she's truly trying to change, trying to make amends in the only way she knows how, maybe we should let her. The children might want to see their mother eventually, I said. Even if she hurt them, she's still their mother. Then we'll figure it out when that time comes. But right now, they need stability. They need to feel safe. And they can't feel safe if she's hanging over us like a threat. We decided to agree to Ngozi's terms. Barrister Okonkwo drew up the papers, complete termination of parental rights, full custody to me with Chaik as co-guardian, no visitation rights unless both Chaik and I agreed in writing. Ngozi signed them from prison without argument. 3 months later, she was released on parole. I told the children their mother was getting out, prepared them for the possibility that she might try to contact them. But Ngozi didn't try. According to Ifeoma, she'd moved to Enugu to live with a distant cousin, was working as a secretary, keeping her head down. She says she doesn't trust herself around the children yet, Ifeoma explained. She's afraid she'll revert to her old patterns. She wants to work on herself first. It was probably the most maternal thing Ngozi had ever done, staying away because she knew her presence would hurt them. Life continued. Chioma started playing piano. Kachi made the school football team. Chaik got promoted at work. Dubam's wedding was beautiful, and the children were in the bridal party. And me. I started writing. Just for myself at first, documenting everything that had happened, processing it all through words. But then Obioma suggested I turn it into a book, a testimony about survival and resilience. Other women need to hear this, she said. Other mothers who are being manipulated, who are losing themselves in toxic families, who think they have no power. They need to know they can fight back. They can reclaim their lives. So I wrote, and when I finished, I had a manuscript called My House, My Rules, How I Survived Domestic Betrayal and Reclaimed My Life. A small Nigerian publisher picked it up. It wasn't going to make me rich or famous, but it would reach the people who needed it. One day, about 18 months after everything had fallen apart and come back together, I was at a book signing at a store in Acacia when a young woman approached me. She couldn't have been more than 30, but her eyes looked ancient with pain. "Mrs. Okafor," she said quietly, "I read your book. My husband's family has been trying to push me out of the house my parents left me. They've been telling me I'm crazy, that I'm imagining things. Your story made me realize I'm not crazy. I'm going to fight back." I held her hands. "Yes, you are. And you're going to win." She started crying, and I pulled her into a hug right there in the bookstore. Because that's what this was all about. Not revenge, not bitterness, but showing other women that they didn't have to accept mistreatment. That they could stand up. That they could survive. That evening, as I drove home to my house legally and spiritually mine again, I thought about the woman I'd been a year and a half ago. Beaten, thrown out onto the street, with nothing but the clothes on her back. I thought that was my lowest point, my ending, but it had actually been my beginning. The gates opened, and I pulled into my driveway. Through the window, I could see the children doing homework at the dining table. Dubam's car was parked outside. He and his wife had come for their weekly dinner. Chaik would be here soon, bringing dessert from the bakery. My house was full of life and love again, full of second chances and hard-won peace. I'd lost everything and gained something better myself. My dignity, my strength, my voice, and no one could ever take that away from me again. But wait, there's one final revelation coming. Don't miss the conclusion. Hit that subscribe button and share this with anyone who needs to hear a story of triumph. The final surprise came on a Saturday morning 2 years after that terrible night when Chaik had thrown me out. I was in the garden with Chioma, teaching her to plant tomatoes, when Obioma arrived with an unusual look on her face, somewhere between concerned and excited. "Adana," she said, "you have a visitor. She says she's family." "Who?" She wouldn't give her name. Just said she's Emeka's daughter. From before you married him. My blood ran cold. Emeka had always sworn he had no children before we got married. It was one of the things that had attracted me to him, a man who came without complications, without secret families like so many Nigerian men had. But I'd learned in the past 2 years that people carried secrets, even good people, even the dead. The woman sitting in my living room was probably in her early 40s, tall and elegant with Emeka's nose and chin. There was no denying the resemblance. "Mrs. Okafor," she said, standing. "My name is Amaka Okarik. My mother was Chinanai Okarik. She and your late husband were together before he met you." "Emeka never mentioned a daughter," I said carefully. "Because he didn't know I existed," she said. "My mother left Lagos when she found out she was pregnant. She was young, scared, and my father, your husband, was just starting his career. She didn't want to burden him. She moved to a wherry and raised me alone. She only told me about him on her deathbed last year. She pulled out documents, a birth certificate showing Emeka Okafor as the father, old photographs of a young Emeka with a beautiful woman I'd never seen, letters he'd written to her mother before they'd lost touch. "I'm not here to cause problems," Amaka said quickly. "My mother made sure I was well educated, well provided for. I don't need money. I just wanted to meet my father's family, to know my brothers, to understand where I came from." I studied her face, trying to process this information. Another child, another secret, another complication in an already complicated family. But then I thought about how I'd felt when Ngozi's lies had separated me from my grandchildren. How Chaik had suffered thinking his children might not be his. How important family connections were, even messy ones. "Your brothers," I said slowly. "Chaik and Dubam. They deserve to know about you. I understand if they're angry. If you all are. I'm sorry to disrupt your lives like this." "You're not disrupting anything," I said. "You're completing something. A piece of Emeka we never knew was missing." I called Chaik and Dubam. They both came immediately, shocked and skeptical. But when they saw the documents, the photos, the undeniable resemblance, they couldn't deny it. "I have a sister," Dubam said, shaking his head in wonder. "All this time, I had a sister." Chaik was quieter, more reserved. "Did Papa know?" he asked Amaka. "I don't think so," she said. "My mother's letters to him were returned. She said he'd moved, left no forwarding address. By the time she tracked him down, he was married to your mother with 2 sons. She didn't want to destroy that. So she kept me a secret." "Secrets," I said softly. "They destroy as much as they protect." Over the following weeks, we got to know Amaka. She was a doctor in a wherry, divorced with a teenage son. She was brilliant, funny, with Emeka's dry wit and my own stubbornness, which she couldn't have inherited but seemed to have anyway. The children loved her immediately. Auntie Amaka became a regular presence at Sunday dinners. She and Dubam bonded over being the good children, while Chaik worked on building trust with this new sister. "It's strange," Chaik said to me one evening, "learning that Papa had this whole other child he never knew about. It makes me realize how much we don't know about the people we love, how many secrets everyone carries. It also makes you realize that family isn't just blood," I said. "It's the people who show up, who stay, who choose each other every day." "Like you chose to forgive me," he said quietly. "I chose to give you a chance to earn forgiveness," I corrected. "You did the rest yourself." The final piece of the puzzle came in an unexpected way. Chief Nwankwo called me one day. We hadn't spoken since he'd given me the information about the Ghana bank account. "Mrs. Okafor, I wanted you to hear this from me first. Ngozi contacted me. She's dying." My heart stopped. "What?" "Cancer. Cervical cancer, stage 4. She hid it during her time in prison, apparently. Didn't want sympathy or special treatment. Now it's spread, and she has maybe 3 months. She asked me to tell you. She wants to see the children. One last time." I didn't know what to feel. Anger that she was still causing complications. Pity for a woman dying young. Relief that this chapter would finally, truly close. I told Chaik and Ifioma. We agreed to ask the children what they wanted. Chioma, now 10 years old and wise beyond her years, said, "I want to see her. Not because I forgive her, but because I want to say goodbye to the mother I wish I'd had. The one who could have loved us but chose not to." Kachi, younger and more tender-hearted, just said, "She's still my mommy, isn't she?" We arranged a visit at the hospice where Ngozi was staying. The woman lying in the bed looked nothing like the polished, cold beauty who destroyed my family. She was gaunt, bald from chemotherapy, her skin papery and gray. But her eyes were different, softer, almost human. "My babies," she whispered when she saw Chioma and Kachi. "You're so big, so beautiful." The children sat by her bed, awkward and uncertain. I stayed in the corner, watching. "I'm sorry," Ngozi said. "I know I don't deserve to say that. I know I don't deserve to see you. But I'm sorry for not being the mother you deserved. For choosing everything else over you. For hurting your father and your grandmother. I'm sorry. Are you really dying?" Kachi asked with a child's bluntness. "Yes, baby. I am." "Does it hurt?" "Sometimes. but not as much as knowing I wasted my life hurting people instead of loving them. Chioma was quiet, holding her mother's thin hand. Finally, she said, "I forgive you, not because you deserve it, but because I don't want to carry hate in my heart anymore. Grandma taught me that." Tears streamed down Ngozi's face. "You have a good grandmother. The best. Mrs. Okafor," she looked at me. "Thank you. For raising my children better than I ever could. For being what I should have been." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. We visited 3 more times before Ngozi passed away, quietly in her sleep. Ifeoma arranged a small funeral. The children went, said goodbye, planted a flower on her grave. "Is it okay that I'm not sad?" Chioma asked me afterward. "It's okay to feel however you feel," I assured her. "There's no right way to grieve someone who hurt you." Life moved on as it always does. Chai continued his recovery journey. Dubam and his wife announced they were expecting a baby. Amaka became a permanent part of our family, spending Christmas with us and being there for the children's school events. The house in Lekki, my house, was full of life and laughter and sometimes tears, but always love. Real love, not the twisted manipulation that had poisoned it before. I kept writing, kept telling stories of survival, kept encouraging other women to find their voices and fight for their dignity. And every night, before I went to sleep, I stood at my bedroom window looking out at my garden, my gate, my street, remembering the night I'd sat on that curb with nothing, remembering how I'd felt like my life was over. But it hadn't been over. It had been a rebirth. I'd lost my house and gotten it back. Lost my son and helped him find himself. Lost my sense of safety and discovered an inner strength I'd never known I had. The woman who'd been thrown out into the street wasn't the same woman standing here now. That woman had been afraid, diminished, convinced she had to accept whatever scraps of respect people were willing to give her. This woman, the woman I'd become, knew her worth, knew her power, knew that she'd survived hell and come out refined like gold. And no one, ever again, would make me forget that. One evening, sitting on the veranda with Chioma doing homework and Kachi playing in the yard, Obayoma stopped by with a bottle of wine. "To celebrate," she said. "Celebrate what?" 2 years since you became the woman I always knew you could be. 2 years since you stopped letting people walk all over you. 2 years since you showed every woman in this country what real strength looks like." We raised our glasses. The sunset painted the sky gold and purple. My grandchildren laughed in the background. Inside, I could hear Dubam helping with dinner while his wife rested on the couch, hand on her growing belly. This was my family now. Broken, reconstructed, imperfect but real. Chosen, fought for, and absolutely, completely worth every battle. "Tell me," Obayoma said, "if you could go back to that night, the night Chaik threw you out, and change everything, would you?" I thought about it, really thought about it. "No," I finally said, "because that night I died, and something stronger was born. I wouldn't trade who I am now for comfort I had then. That comfort was built on lies and fear. This peace is built on truth and strength. That's my sister," Obayoma said, clinking her glass against mine. As the stars came out over Lagos, I thought about all the women out there who were sitting on metaphorical curbs right now, who'd been thrown out, cast aside, told they were worthless, who believed they had no power, no options, no future. I wanted them to know you do. You have more power than you realize, more strength than you've ever tested, more future than anyone who's hurt you wants you to believe. The question isn't whether you can survive. The question is, when you come out the other side, who will you choose to become? I chose to become a woman who knew her worth, who protected her family, who rebuilt her life from nothing, who understood that sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you is actually the beginning of the best thing. And that's a lesson worth every scar. Thank you for staying with us through Adana's incredible journey from betrayal to triumph. If this story touched you, please hit that like button, subscribe to African Tales by Miracle for more powerful stories, and share this with anyone who needs to hear that they can overcome anything. Comment below and let us know, what was your favorite moment in Adana's story? Where are you watching from? And remember, you are stronger than you know. See you in the next story. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss when we post.